guys, thanks for visiting the Wella Health YouTube channel and checking out another one of our videos. Our job at Wella Health is to give people the information they need to stay safe and healthy. Today we'll be talking all about driving. Now as teenagers, you are probably very excited to finally start driving. Driving is fun, it's convenient, and it gives you the freedom to go wherever you want, whenever you want. Now some of you might have already gotten your license, and some of you might plan on getting your license in the near future. And while driving can be very enjoyable, it is also a huge responsibility. It is very important for you to follow the rules of the road, because doing so could mean the difference between life and death. So in this video, we'll be talking all about dangerous driver choices and what you can do to keep yourself and your passengers safe. So let's get started with our video. Let's start off with a little quiz. What is the safest mode of transportation? Is it a car, an airplane, a motorcycle, or walking? Well, believe it or not, the safest mode of transportation is actually the airplane. Most people would probably feel safer traveling in a car than on an airplane, but cars are actually the second most dangerous way to travel. Between 2011 and 2019, there were 2 plane-related deaths and 0 plane crashes. However, during that same time period, nearly 315,000 people have died in car crashes. Considering how dangerous driving is, it is extremely important that drivers do everything necessary to keep themselves and their passengers safe. So what makes driving so dangerous? Well, driving is so dangerous because as humans, we're bound to make mistakes. More than 90% of traffic crashes are caused by human error. So sometimes crashes are caused by honest mistakes made by a driver, but more often than not, crashes are caused by a driver making dangerous choices. So the top 3 causes of car crashes are speeding, impaired driving, and distracted driving, which we will touch on in this presentation. But do remember that the overwhelming majority of crashes, nearly all of them, are preventable. Young drivers between the ages of 15 and 24 are more likely than any other age group to be involved in a deadly car crash. The reason is that young drivers are often less experienced and more likely to make dangerous decisions behind the wheel, such as speeding or driving under the influence. So in this presentation, we'll be talking all about what you need to do to stay safe. In the beginning, we talked all about how dangerous driving is. So the number one thing that you must always do, without exception, is wear your seatbelt. Seatbelts are by far the most important safety feature in a car. Wearing a seatbelt can increase your chances of surviving a crash by 50 to 60%. In the event of a crash, the seatbelt will prevent you from being ejected from the vehicle. Airbags work together with seatbelts. They don't replace them. So if you aren't wearing a seatbelt and the airbags deploy, you could be injured by the airbags. We are becoming ever more dependent on our cell phones for communication and navigation, especially while driving. This has led to an increase in the number of crashes caused by a distracted driver. Every year, at least 3,000 people are killed in a crash caused by a distracted driver. The actual number is actually much higher, since the cause of many crashes remains unknown. A distraction is anything that takes your attention away from driving. Cell phones are only one type of distraction. The 3 types of distractions are manual distractions, which is something that causes you to take your hands off the wheel, visual distractions, something that causes you to take your eyes off the road, and cognitive distractions, anything that takes your mind off of driving. Prepare ahead to avoid distractions. Before beginning your drive, it's best to make sure that you have everything set and ready to go. This will help eliminate any distractions. So if you will be using a navigation system for directions, be sure to input and confirm the address as well as the route you wish to take. Choose your radio station or playlist ahead of time. Also, enable voice control features on your phone just in case you need to make an emergency phone call. However, do remember that you are still distracted even when using your phone hands-free. Now let's talk a little bit about speeding. Speeding is the number 1 cause of fatal car crashes. Speeding is defined as driving above the posted speed limit as well as driving too fast for road conditions. So if the posted speed limit is 60 miles per hour and you're doing 75, you're speeding. However, if there are hazardous weather conditions such as heavy rain or icy roads, you should also reduce your speed. Speeding can cause a driver to lose control of the vehicle, and a speeding driver will require more time to come to a complete stop. So what can you do to avoid getting into a speed-related crash? It's simple. Slow down.
Always drive at or below the posted speed limit. Remember, the faster you drive is the less likely you are to survive a crash. Driving while impaired. Driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs is called impaired driving. Impaired driving is the second leading cause of preventable car crashes. Every year, more than 10,000 people die in drunk driving crashes. This includes the driver, passengers, and pedestrians or cyclists that may have been hit. Despite the consequences of driving while impaired, more than 1 million drivers are arrested each year for driving while impaired.
When it comes to driving in states that have legalized recreational marijuana, people often wonder whether it is legal to smoke marijuana and drive. Well, the answer is no. Smoking marijuana isn't the same as smoking a cigarette. Marijuana, legal or not, is still a controlled substance that can affect your body in such a way that it would be dangerous for you to drive. In many states, driving while under the influence of marijuana carries the same or similar penalties as driving drunk. Because of how drugs and alcohol can affect your body, driving while under the influence can be extremely dangerous. Using drugs or alcohol can cause you to feel drowsy, impair your judgment, reduce your coordination, impair your vision, and even alter your mental state. Drivers who drive under the influence often end up falling asleep at the wheel, running red lights, stop signs, or speeding, drifting into other lanes, and often losing control of the vehicle. Impaired driving is never worth the risk. If you're caught, you could face some serious consequences, such as civil and criminal penalties, a significant increase in your insurance premiums, loss of driving privileges, termination from employment or school, and worst of all, injuring or killing yourself or someone else. There are so many other ways to get home safely rather than driving under the influence. Ask yourself, is it really worth facing any of these consequences just because you don't want to ask a designated driver to drive you home or because you don't want to take a cab? Definitely not. Do yourself a favor and plan ahead. If a police officer pulls you over and suspects you of drinking and driving, the officer may ask to administer a breath test to determine how much alcohol is in your system. You'll be asked to breathe into a device that measures something known as blood alcohol content, or BAC. If the result of the breath test shows that your BAC is at least 0.08, you could be arrested and charged with DUI. There are many myths surrounding driving while intoxicated, or DWI, so let's take a look at some of these myths. Number 1. If I drink and drive, I can avoid being charged with drunk driving if I refuse to take a breath test. Well, the fact is that if you refuse to take a breath test when asked to by a police officer, your license could be suspended for 12 months and you could be sentenced to a maximum of 6 months in prison. If you refuse to take the breath test, you will be subject to the maximum penalties for DWI. So in most cases, you're better off just taking the breath test and dealing with the consequences later on. DWI myth number 2. I'm a safe driver even when I've been drinking, so I don't have to worry about the police pulling me over for reckless driving. Well, the fact is that the police can pull you over for many reasons other than reckless driving. For example, a broken taillight. If the police smell the odor of alcohol during the traffic stop, they will most likely suspect that you've been drinking and ask you to take a breath test. DWI myth number 3. If I've been drinking, there are many ways to quickly sober up, such as eating a lot of bread, taking a cold shower, or drinking coffee. Well, the fact is there is no way to immediately reduce the effects of alcohol. You must allow time for the body to break down and eliminate the alcohol from your system. How much time can vary from person to person. A ballpark estimate is at least 1 hour per serving of alcohol. That means if you've just had 2 glasses of wine, it could take at least 2 hours for the alcohol to completely clear your system. Always think ahead and have a plan. If you're driving to a place where alcohol or drugs may be used, make sure you have a plan for how you will get home without driving should you decide to drink or use drugs. Some options are taking public transportation, such as the bus or the train, calling a taxi, such as an Uber or a Lyft, spending the night and waiting until the next day to drive instead, or appointing a designated driver, which is someone that is completely sober that can drive for you. It's important to note that a designated driver is not someone who has been consuming less alcohol than you have. So, for example, if you had 6 drinks and someone else had 3 drinks, just because the person is less drunk than you are, doesn't mean that that person is suitable to be a designated driver. The designated driver should have consumed no alcohol or drugs at all. So ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth losing your life in a drunk driving crash because you didn't want to use a designated driver? Is it worth losing your life because you couldn't wait to send that text message or read that social media post while you were driving? Is it worth losing your life because you chose to speed or because you didn't wear your seatbelt? Remember, crashes are preventable, and the choices we make behind the wheel matter. Well, I hope you guys learned a thing or two about safe driving and that from now on, you'll make safer choices behind the wheel. Thanks for watching, and remember to check out our other great videos on our YouTube channel. Take care and have a safe day.